Every person has a great story. If you don't have a great story, it's because you haven't found it yet. Keep looking.
Hello everyone, this is Victor Ogulenko, and today my guest is Thomas Hulbert, the famous MBA expert and communications advisor to blockchain startups. Today we will talk about MBA, and next time we'll switch to blockchain. Thomas, thank you very much for coming tonight.
It's all right, Victor. Glad to see you again.
First question about MBA. Why do you need MBA in the first place?
Why do you need an MBA? Good question. Why do you need an MBA? The typical reasons people give for why they need an MBA is that I don't have enough education, which sounds ridiculous because they're already very educated people. What they really mean is they need a spravka. They need some kind of extra oomph to be hireable in their own minds, to get a job with a company that requires such a thing. Now, there are a number of companies, of course, who have consultancies, for example. More and more they're thinking, well, maybe we could just promote these people with the experience that we've got, that they have received.
That's right, what they're doing right now, exactly.
Because it's very expensive. So it's a spravka.
If I don't need a spravka, do I need to take an MBA?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Because nothing is ever 100% a spravka or 100% one way. One of the interesting things about an MBA, and I would say about any MBA, almost any MBA, is that you could go and get an education abroad and literally reinvent yourself, to find out who you really are. And that's really an important thing. And you think, well, that's just a byproduct of the education. Okay, there's an argument there, but it's also possibly the more important thing, because the skills that you learn in an MBA are actually skills you could probably learn through the course of your career anyway. It's just accelerated in the MBA. You've got 2 years or a 1-year program or a 2-year program, and you do it all in 2 years instead of the next 10 years of your career. So there's that added benefit of accelerating that experience. But having it abroad is the thing that, for me, seems to be the most important for Russian people, because it can break them out of this spravka mentality, this mentality that they have to follow the certain path that's been laid out for them, that they can actually do it. They can start thinking outside the box. Many candidates say, well, I want to go to America or to Europe because Russia's the sky's falling. Russia's going to fall into the ocean any minute. And they've been saying this for, 15 years now? How long am I doing this? 15 years? And Russia has not fallen into the ocean. And many people go to get their education, and they discover that, wow, I can do this. And they come back to Russia, and they have this different perspective, and they're relaxed. They're a little bit more relaxed, and they can get that job that they originally wanted, or they can get another job, and it doesn't matter so much. And they're not worried that they're missing out. This FOMO, I love this FOMO, fear of missing out. That's what the spravka is a lot about that. It's a lot about fear, that if you're going to do the wrong thing and your life's going to get on the wrong track and you're going to wind up not meeting your potential, but you never really know, right? And
Are there other ways to reinvent yourself?
Sure.
How would you do that?
Foreign travel. That's how I did it. I lived abroad. I lived and worked abroad.
So if I want to switch the gears in my life and decide to do an MBA, how would I choose a program?
How would I choose a program? Do the unthinkable. Research. That's right. So the Russian guy, he does his research, and he goes to Financial Times, and he looks at the top 10 list, and he says, hey, I've done my research. It's one of these top 10 schools.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Preferably the one at the top, which this year happens to be X, or it's Harvard, or it's Chicago Booth, or it's Wharton. This year, I want to go to, it's Berkeley this year. That's what they do. That's their research. They look at the list, and they say, I want to go to this school because it's number one. This is it's a literal transposing of the Russian view about the limited number of valuable schools in Russia. How many are there? 5 or 6? There's the MGU, there's MGIMO, there's MIPT, there's NES, there's the Высшая School Economica, If you didn't go to one of those schools, then you didn't really go to school, right? You didn't go to school. And so you've got to get you've got to get an extra education to make up for it somehow. And so you look at America and you see this top 10 list. Oh, there's another very short list of schools. Oh, it looks very familiar. I'll just go to any one of these and it'll be great. My life will be fixed, But the fact is, these schools, although they all provide great managerial education, they're all very different places. And the great thing is you can research them. You can meet people who've been there. You can research them. You can use secondary sources like Poets and Quants or a GMAT club, and you can find out what these schools do. Some people, I think, erroneously say, "Oh, I don't want to go to that school. That's a finance school," or "I don't want to go to, let's say, Kellogg. It's a marketing school," or "I don't want to go to Stanford because it's an entrepreneurial school." Well, this is ridiculous. All of these schools are great schools, and they teach management, and they teach you how to be a better manager, a better leader. Full stop. Some of them have a little bit better expertise in marketing or this or entrepreneurship, whatever. All of them, you can learn entrepreneurship in any one of them. You can learn marketing in any one of them. The thing is, where do you want to be? And that choice should not be superficial, but it could be. For example, I want to surf, so I want to go to Stanford or I want to go to UCLA, because that's where you surf, right? You don't surf in New York. Or you could, but I wouldn't. Or some people say they want to go to Columbia because it is in New York. Well, it's like Moscow, only better. Yeah, I want to go live in New York, so I got to go to Columbia. That's the beginning of a choice. Though your gut instinct, your impulses, well, they're not necessarily wrong. They can lead you into other conclusions. So take your gut instinct. I would like to live somewhere where people speak better English. For example, maybe the Midwest. Maybe you want to go to a Chicago booth in the Midwest where people speak a little slower. They enunciate a little bit more instead of speaking really fast like I do from California, or speaking with a very strange twang from New York. Or maybe you don't care. What do you want to do? I always ask my clients, I say, if you want to go to this school, how do you identify with this school? What is there something at this school that will draw you in, or something that you have in common with this school? For example, a professor who wrote a book. Oh yeah, I read that book too. Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In. The lady's like, this is a great book. Very interesting book for women, for men as well, by the way. Where does she teach? Does she teach at Columbia? Does she teach at Harvard? Well, you want to go there because of her? Well, why not? Well, that's not a bad idea. Go meet your hero. Go talk to someone who's relevant to you, whose book has touched your experience. Why not? And so on and so forth. There's a professor who teaches about, for example, maybe blockchain or investing, or about, HR management, or something about building teams in a very unusual way by going on a trip to South America, or going on a trip to Antarctica, or whatever. These are the kind of things that can lead you into exploring a school, and then eventually exploring yourself, exploring your own desire for something that you want to do. All things being equal, they're not equal, but let's say all things being equal, this is a good way to say, well, I'd rather go to this school than this school. Because the rankings, in the Financial Times rankings, every year they shuffle the schools a little bit, but it's all basically the same school. They're all, Stanford's always on the list, Harvard's always on the list. If Harvard goes from 1 to 4, is it really bad? No, it's not bad. They're great schools. In fact, the list is even larger. There's schools that are very good that are not on the top 10 list. I've mentioned already UCLA. It's in a very exciting place. It's always hovering, number 11, number 13. People say, I don't want to go to that school. It's not in the top 10. Well, maybe it is in the top 10. It just doesn't bother to play the game. The rankings are about endowments. They're about schools struggling for prestige, like anybody else, trying to have a good brand, trying to look good. And the things that make those brands, the things that make a school look really good, are not always the things that benefit a student, not directly. You got to remember that school is not just about how great the school is, it's about how great you are. What are you going to do? People always go to a school and think, what is this school going to do for me? What is this school going to do for me? I'm paying, what are they going to do for me? What are you going to do for yourself?
If we forget for a moment about the top 10 schools and consider top 50 schools, how would you narrow down the list of the schools for application?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? You know, do you want to learn French? Do you want to be in France? You want to learn, you want to learn Spanish?
Okay, so the first criteria is place.
That's for me. That would be intriguing. You know, I moved to the Netherlands because I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn Dutch. Not everybody wants to go to the Netherlands to learn Dutch. Not everybody wants to go to the Rotterdam School of, you know, of management. You know, for example, what about schools that are cheaper? Do you want to go to India? What about schools that are closer to the market that you want to be in? For example, in Singapore, or you know, in Singapore, by the way, is not only about NCA. There's a bunch of really good schools there in that area, in Singapore, Hong Kong area. Well, that could be network. Where do you want your network? For example, is the network in a Chicago booth really about energy? You know, it's one of the places where there's a lot of the energy, the gas and oil. Is that interesting? Okay, you want to go there and be with the leading gas and oil guys? Okay, fine.
So I hear the three most important things in choosing a business school are place, network, and specific people who teach there or work there who you can meet.
I would say inclination as well.
Inclination. Your inclination or the MBA program's inclination?
The inclination of yourself towards a school, you know.
Where does it come from, this inclination?
That's a good question. I think it has to come from yourself. A lot of applicants are really trying to please a school. They're trying to say, I love your school is so great, let me in your school. By the way, it's not going to work. You know, telling a school how great it is does not make you look like a better candidate.
It knows already.
They know how great they are, or they don't care. You know, they're not looking for that. They're looking for someone who knows what they want. So actually, your personal inclination, that what you want to do, what you think you want to do, this is vital. This is vital stuff, because it directs you, it puts you on a trajectory towards your future. Now, you may not land where you think you're going to land, but that trajectory is visible. Some schools, in fact, most schools nowadays, they have even dispensed with the, you know, what are your goals? Or if they do ask the goals question, it's in the back somewhere, or you know, you can add it in a supplemental essay in the online application or something like this. They don't ask because they know if you get into the school, you're going to change your mind. But the goals are a way of showing your trajectory, this trajectory that we're talking about, where you think you're going, where you imagine yourself going. And this is really important, because the person who's going from Spravka to Spravka, the person who's going from, you know, from having, you know, I collected this one bonus, and then I'm going to go collect this other bonus. I'm going to collect all the bonuses, and I'll have all the bonuses. This is not life. This is not a career. This is a separate task.
Video game.
It's video game approach to your career, your life. And I don't want to criticize people who think this way, because it's really hard to shake this way of thinking when everything around you is built to facilitate this way of thinking. It's hard. But if you say, well, you know, I'm inclined to, you know, artificial intelligence. I'm not a programmer, but I see this is really interesting. You know, I've got a background in X, Y, or Z. I got a background in economics, or I got a background in engineering, and I want to go do that. I want to try myself. And so, what's your trajectory? Well, how can you show that your background could possibly put you in that space. I had a candidate recently who did not have a background in artificial intelligence, but he gave himself one. He took this Udacity courses, and he taught himself Python and a number of other computer languages, and he founded a company to help him learn. He founded a company, and he learned, and he got into his desired school because he'd pitched himself as someone who's willing to learn to do it. And he had a great time doing it. He made an extra buck doing it, and he actually set himself on that course by being prepared in that way. Schools are ageist. If you're a 30-year-old guy, you're 90 years old in the MBA world. So you've got a limited choice. But you do have a window from 22 to 27 or so to make that decision. Women, you still have a little bit longer. Women, you can go to your early 30s. And this is the time you do your experimenting and you make your decisions. Have a career that has a couple jobs in it, you know? Some people think, I've got to get an MBA right away. I've got to do it right now. And this usually is not a very good idea because you're up against other candidates who will have several jobs. You know, in our day and age, people are going to have a ton of jobs. Our parents had one job. Our parents got hired at the steel mill, or our parents got hired at the engineering firm, or our parents became professors, and they did that for how long? 30, 40 years. But we don't.
But why does it matter for MBA?
Because it shows that you are gaining skills. You're gathering skills from other areas. You're capable of moving around. You're not afraid. And you're capable of gathering skills and experience from different areas. And the school, quite frankly, is looking to benefit itself. The school wants these skills for itself. Hey, this is what we offer. This is what our student body looks like. We're really diverse. Look at us. We're great. Never forget, the school sees the candidate as meat, raw material. It doesn't need you in particular. Yeah, they're not altruistic institutions that are ready to help. They're not. They're in it for themselves. And they pick people to be in their program who fit their ideological goals. This is another area in which you could select a university. Superficially, all these schools have kind of a slogan, be your own future, or always a student, or they have these little slogans, little catchy phrases. If you look a little bit deeper, these things often have layers of meaning within the curriculum with how a school might approach things. So when you study the school, when you study a business school, take this thing into account. How serious is it? Maybe it's not that serious. Maybe it's really serious. For example, Harvard has the case study. They invented a case study method. A lot of people in Russia got attached to the case study method, and it was great, right? It was a great thing. It was a great boon for Russia. Students didn't get this kind of training in their schools, and they learned how to do case studies mostly on their own. I mean, the case study clubs in Russia, they're founded by students. They're not founded by professors. They're not founded by people from the outside. They're founded by people on the inside, students themselves. This is amazing. And so, do you want to go to a school that uses the case method? Well, why not? Maybe Harvard is your thing. Maybe that's why you want to go. Other schools don't use the case method. They don't think it's very good. We should use real examples. Don't use a case. Go do a real thing. I had one candidate. He was from Astrakhan, and he went to Astrakhan University. So he went to a no-name, no-brand university. And the guy, he was a car insurance salesman who weaseled his way into being a car dealership manager, and then the manager of several car dealerships. And because he didn't have this Spravka, he didn't have this great background in his education, his scores were not that great. His choice of schools was rather limited. He found a home at Manchester University in England. He went there, got into this place. He loved it. He loved it. They didn't use the case method there. They simply farmed the students out to do projects for heavy industry. Manchester Business School in England. You want to? Yeah, it wasn't an option. It wasn't something that the consulting club did. Everybody had to do it. It's part of what they did. They say, okay, solve the problem for this business. Go do it now. You're on. Go. He loved it. He loved it. He said it was great, very, very informative for him. What was he saying about? They had a competition for fund, managing a fund on the stock market, and they won. They were up against schools like Columbia and Harvard and Wharton, and this little Manchester Business School had the best performing portfolio that year. That was in the 5 years ago. So the guy got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He came back here. He became a consultant at Accenture, and now he's a big honcho at Severstal. His career went the way he wanted to go. He didn't go to the most famous school. He got into the school that he could get into, and he put his back into it. He put his life into it, and he got what he wanted. Perfect. So there are these schools out there for those people.
Suppose we've chosen a school. How do we sell ourselves to this school?
Story. It's all about story. So in Russia, because the schools tend to be very technically oriented, and they're slamming hard skills at kids, really hard. I think this is great, by the way. This is a sort of a route learning kind of thing, and we criticize route learning a lot. So, there's no imagination, it's industrial level. Okay, yeah, it is these things, but it also has the opposite effect of teaching people really how to do things, to have real life skills. It's very good, very useful. So how do you build a story when your school doesn't teach you how to write? Almost nobody is taught how to write in school. Writing is something you learn on the way. If you're lucky, hurry up and do the report. Well, you do the report and I'll do this, and you do this part, and we're all sort of, in the Western eyes, we're cheating because we're sharing this task.
Cooperation.
We're cooperating because you have to, because the schools are designed that way. And when you do this, you don't really have a time to build your own personal story. And now students, when they want to go to get an MBA abroad, they're faced with this incredible choice. How do I present myself? And they say, well, just look at my spravkas. I went to the great school. I have a degree. I have a red diploma from a great school, and my brother owns a company, and I live in Moscow. It's a pretty good city. And it just doesn't mean anything to the rest of the world. Nobody cares. It says, well, my family comes from Siberia. We finally made it to Moscow. It was a big deal. Well, yes, it was a big deal for you, but nobody else cares.
We suffered in the 90s.
We suffered in that. We lost all our money in the 90s. Oh, I have relatives that died in the war. It's true, but it doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect us. To tell a good story, you have to know who you are. There's the guy who wanted to go to school. He shall remain anonymous, and he had built up a company from nothing. It was kind of a rickety company. wasn't very good, but he had a pretty good life. I mean, it was exciting to build a company that was later purchased by a very large global player, and they made some good money off that. And he's, what's his story? And he's like, I don't know what my story is. I don't know what to say, And he built a story around his family. So he talked about his home in Ukraine, and there was a pitch, and on the pitch there's this, 3 pictures. It's a picture of grandpa, of daddy, and of mama, and there's a blank spot. So the reader has this image of this place. He tells the story of his daddy, how his daddy was an entrepreneur. He tells the story of his mama, who was a great teacher, became like a national hero of the Soviet Union because she was such a great teacher. Grandfather was an industrialist who, built a factory that gave thousands of people jobs. And how is he going to have his picture on that wall? How is he going to get on that wall? What have I got to do to get on that wall? So I have to do something big. I have to do something that's of equal value. And so he sets himself this challenge, and he's built a company, and he's helped other people build their careers. And he's trying to put it forward like that. And it sounds great. It's very compelling stuff. It's very compelling stuff. He could have said, "Oh, I started a company. We make so much money. I'm from Ukraine. It's terrible, but now
We suffered.
We suffer. We are dying. We are dying everywhere.
But I made it.
But I made it. So please take me." And he got into every school that he applied to, every single one. So and so he had a choice. That was great. Your story is often hidden. It's often hidden in things. So there's one of my favorite stories is this a young lady who was a consultant, one of the leading consultancies here in this country, in Moscow. And she was a good consultant, right? She had good reviews, she had good performance, she had good projects. But a consultant, they're all kind of the same. She didn't have any other previous work experience that was really valuable. And so I'm asking her, have you done anything in your past? As well, I'm from the Far East. There's nothing going on in the Far East. It's life is in Moscow. Think hard. And I said something, did you ever swing from ropes or anything like that? You do a Tarzan? And we had a laugh, of course. And she said, yes. As a matter of fact, I had.
Wow. And
she told me this story about how she was actually some kind of pioneer working for the junior MCS when she was a teenager. Now, wait a minute. So, you're jumping out of helicopters on the mountain with gurneys, picking up people doing search and rescue, and you're 18? Oh no, more than that. I was training people as well. How could this not be your story? No, this is an amazing story. So she's thinking, well, it's too personal, or the story is it happened long ago, or it's not relevant to my business experience. It's absolutely relevant to your business experience. If you've got the courage to hang out of a helicopter, to get some guy who's broken his leg on the mountain and haul him up in a gurney and perform emergency first aid, and to train a team of other kids to do the same thing, I'd say that's a pretty good story. I'd say that's a pretty good story. That's a pretty formative experience.
It is.
And she realized it was, and she got what she wanted. And so everybody's got these kinds of things in their lives. And some people might say, well, I didn't jump out of a helicopter. So, well, what did you do? Think. Chances are, if you live in Russia, chances are you probably had some terrifying experience somewhere, or some extremely unusual experience somewhere, or some kind of thing. You're only as boring as you think you are. And if you want other people to find you interesting, but you don't think you're interesting, they won't. So you have to be interesting. And you have to believe that you're interesting. And then other people at least have a chance to believe that you're interesting as well. I'm serious. I have not met a person who didn't have an absolutely stunning, knockdown, drag-out, amazing story once they get to it. It might take a little while to get to. They founded a company. They took care of their mother. They did some crazy thing. Their mother started a business by flying back. One guy, his mother started a clothing business by flying back and forth to Turkey with those big bags. And she literally would set up shop in the airport in the Far East where they lived. And eventually she had enough money that she was buying all these, too many bags, and she had to set up a shop in a local strip mall. His mother was an entrepreneur. His mother was an entrepreneur. He didn't even think he thought she was just, making ends meet. He thought she was just doing the only thing she could do. Well, she was doing the only thing she could do. It just so happens that she was an amazing person, a very influential person in this candidate's life. And she was taking opportunity by the tail. And so how is that not inspiring? Well, come on. There's your role model. It's mom. It's not Steve Jobs. It's your own mom, for goodness sake. Everybody's got a story like this. How do you find it? Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get feedback. Get feedback from other people. That's what I do. That's my job. I ask these questions. Do you have a brother? Yes, I do. Is he in the army? Well, yes. Did he ever beat you up? Yeah, he did. Well, you ever fight with him? Yeah. You still love him? Yeah. So he beat you up and you still love him? Yeah. It was the best time I ever had. Oh, so you like fighting? Yeah, I'm a boxer. Well, listen, make the connection, buddy. Make the connection. You're a boxer because your brother beat you up, and you're not afraid of him, and you love him. What does that say? It says you don't take yourself too seriously, maybe. You're tough, you can take punishment, and you learn how to give it back just as much, maybe a little bit more. That sounds great. That sounds great. Ask yourself a question. Don't rely on other people to tell you what your future is going to be. You went to FISTech, so you'll be, a computer programmer. Oh, you went to, this school, oh, you're going to be an optometrist. Oh, you went to this school, oh, you're going to be a government worker forever. It's not true. You have to make your own story. You have to make your own story. And you can. And learning to write your own story takes practice. It just takes practice. Your first draft stinks. Yes, it stinks. It stinks terrible. Just write another one and keep going and keep going.
Thanks, Thomas. This is very inspiring. That's all for today. But next week, we'll publish the new interview about blockchain. So stay with us. See you soon. And subscribe.